Hello, and welcome to another episode of Dom's Trading Journal, where I go over everything that I'm doing outside of the market hours, how I'm preparing for the market, how I'm making rules, how I'm adapting to my rules and the market, and always trying to continually move forward and keep my trajectory on an upward angle and try to continually and consistently be profitable in all markets, and how I adjust my plans, my patterns, how I am responding to current market conditions, and really just keeping you updated on my journey throughout the year and what I'm looking at, what I'm looking for, how I'm keeping myself accountable, and try to be a guide and a light for especially beginners, how to approach non-market hours, how you could be educating better, how you could be studying, I could be tracking, and really just going over whatever I think is important at the time, keeping you updated with my journal. And right now, today is the first market day of 2022. So I think it is relevant to go over my trading goals for this year. That's going to be the first input into the trading journal for this year. And then we'll go over my January goals. And then later this week, I will go over how I'm doing, updating you on trades, going over how I'm doing this week in terms of sticking to my process and sticking to my plans, and then go over whatever else I want to talk about that I think can be helpful. So for 2022, yes, 2022 sounds different and weird to say. I'm just going to kind of read this, go over what I think is important, why I'm making these rules. I think in stock therapy, I talk a lot about my blueprint, going back to what makes me money. And right at the end of 2021, I made a new rule sheet, outlined what I needed to do, and that actually I closed out 2021 with really good confidence, really good momentum, and I felt really comfortable. And I want to take that into 2021 and use it to kind of propel me into a really solid first month of the year, knowing that that's how you set yourself up for a very good, comfortable, profitable year. So I'm feeling super confident going into the new year. The new rules have been working great and have me feeling as comfortable as ever. I want to start this year with those rules and change if need be. 4-1 risk reward on all plays outside of OTC breakouts, and go for the big trade on my bread and butter. We talked about this in a previous episode, but one of the rules that I created for the end of the year was I wanted to really focus on risk reward on anything that wasn't A plus plus, because I was giving away too much money and taking too many trades that were subpar in hindsight. And if I really just focus on, super scientific on those trades that I don't have the greatest gut feeling on, just taking the money that makes sense, which I think is like 4-1, that's a nice middle ground where if I'm risking, $2,500, I'm making 10, and over the course of time, those are going to be my wallet patterns and pay me with a decently high win percentage. I think anything over 50 is going to be super profitable and really help the bottom line for each month. And then focus on OTC breakouts where I have the good gut feeling, where I have the most experience and have mastered the most, and allow myself to think about those. Go for the big trade. Try to get the 10, 20, 30 to 1 risk reward. Be more patient and let those trades really guide where my P&L goes and allow me to go exponential over the course of the year. Fewer trades and more profits. Consistently profitable all months of the year. To do this, I want to focus 100% of my time and energy on process-oriented habits. Some of these would be keeping control of risk at all times, not putting myself in position to have to take a bigger than expected loss. This is something that really riddled my trading for the last few months of 2021, where I would be kind of trading pretty good, trading good setups, whatever consistent dollar risk, whatever it might have been, and then all of a sudden I was taking a ton of big losses on really subpar trades because I was so out of touch with my risk management. I was just willy-nilly risking whatever I wanted, and that was really hurting me because my profits that I was making on the good trades were getting brought down by the horrible trades I was taking. It was like if it was a D minus setup, I'd risk 10x what I really wanted to risk, and then on the B plus setups, I was risking a quarter of that, and it wasn't making. I was losing too much on setups that didn't deserve it, and that is something I need to be on top of going into the new year. Using consistent dollar risk on all plays, taking only the best trade setups of the week, and keeping a small but specific watch list. I will need to stay prepared at all times and adapt to current market conditions by making watch lists and scanning every night and only trading when I have specific plans for. And this is really when I say I'm getting back to my blueprint. This is what it really comes down to, is focusing on patterns, focusing on making a watch list, narrowing it down to 2, 3, 4 tickers, depending on how hot the market is. That's going to change, But in reality, I shouldn't be trading stocks that aren't on my watch list. I've never succeeded trading the hot stock of the day or something that just comes up on my radar that day, unless it's like a perfect OTC that I'm going to put on my watch and set up for the future. I seem to get into these habits where I'm pulling up two or three new tickers over the course of a week or two, and each day I'm pulling up a few tickers, trading. I'm taking these losses, and they're just sinking me and not allowing my good trades I'm doing to get me far ahead, which is the whole point of them and how I want to trade, which is risk reward oriented. And I tend to just be more comfortable and trade better when I have two or three stocks on my watch list and I force myself to only trade those plans that I have. There's a reason I made those plans. I feel comfortable with the levels. I understand the stock, and it only makes sense that I'm going to do better on those than something I pull up and within 20 minutes have a position on. I will be documenting all of this on TraderView to keep myself accountable and be able to keep up with stats and trends in my trading, forcing myself to only take trades that I would want to talk about with my students. This is a mental thing that I'm going to be doing this year to start off this year, especially doing this vlog and this trading journal. I think this is a great spot to do it. I'm going to deleted everything from my TraderView, basically started from scratch. We're going to start with 1-3. I have a few trades coming in from last year that I'm still holding right now, so those ones. But I'm going to show you how I go over my TraderView, how I go through my stats, how I adapt to them and understand trends in my trading, whether it be something as simple as day of the week that I trade better than others. Time of day is a big one. Dollar price of the stock, sometimes that can be effective, especially during different months of the year, and show you how I do that. But the main takeaway for me mentally is if I don't want to talk about it to my stock therapy students, I probably shouldn't be taking the trade. And that's something I'm going to remind myself and going to be, how do you always says on a sticky note? That's what would be on a sticky note for me. Like, would you want to talk about this trade? No? Don't take the trade then. Some of the goals for the year, I want to make 2.5 million in trading profits. A number just pulled out of thin air. I tend to think the higher you shoot for, you're going to end up in a good spot. Even if I didn't hit that goal, anywhere under that would still be optimal and better than I've ever done. And for me, I always like to shoot far out there, dream big, because you're going to push yourself further. And if you put that number lower, psychologically, you might not quite get to where you actually could be. So I always reach for the stars a little bit. In terms of stats, I want an average winner over average loser of 3-1. Over the course of the year, I'd like to have, if I'm risking an average of 2,500, my average gain is 7,500. And that is just kind of where I think this number, I think, tells a lot about a trader. And if you can get your averages to 2, 3, 4-1, you're in really good shape and you're doing a great job managing risk and letting your winners run, which is something I think is super important and something that holds a lot of people back. I want a winning percentage over 50%. I've always kind of hovered around there, but since I'm going to be tracking everything on TraderView, I'd like to be able to see it over the course of a year. And I think if I'm taking fewer trades and that is my focus, to focus on the best of the best, I'm going to have a higher than 50% win percentage, even though you can be very profitable underneath a 50% win percentage. I'd like to have 0 red months. I know I had 1 or 2 last year, and they ended up being really just emotionally draining months where I didn't learn from my mistakes. I didn't learn quick enough. I didn't capitalize on, my strength as much. And I think if I set a goal to have no red months, I'm consistently focusing on the bottom line and the big picture of the whole year, and knowing that, break even month or just a couple $1,000 green month is better than forcing for a consistent like 100,000 every month. And if I feel like I'm not going to get that, I push, and all of a sudden I'm deep red. That's just not worth it mentally or for the account either. So I think it's just it kind of no red months to me means consistency and not losing sight of the bigger picture each month of the year, knowing that it's a long year. Biggest loss 20,000. That's way bigger than I'm going to be risking per trade, most likely. So this is kind of accounting for big disaster situation, big lapse in judgment, lapse in discipline. That's like the biggest number I want to allow. It'd be great if we go nowhere near that. I'd like to have my first 6-figure trade. 2021, I probably had a handful, probably 5 situations where I would have had this in the bag. But because I was still learning patience and these big picture setups, most of those trades closed for break even or very small gains. And I learned a lot from those situations in terms of the type of stocks I need to be patient on, the type of stocks I need to kind of take the risk reward and move on. But that's neither here nor there. That's something that I'd like to cement this year. And just, I always say to people, like, especially people who have decent years, like I have a student, someone I talk to in the regular, who had a 6-figure year. but in terms of what they're risking, didn't have any really big trades, and they want to be like, oh, well, look at the year I had, it was really good. And I'm like, well, where do you want to be? Because if you can find a way to let your winners run, and you can risk 500 to make 20,000, 5, I mean 10, 20,000, and you don't have any of those trades in that year, like you could really go exponential if you can learn how to let your winners run. And the big thing is like putting yourself in position to do that, because once you have realized that big trade where you get 20, 30, 40, you want to risk reward, you can do it. You can stick to a plan. You can have the patience and the discipline to do that. And that usually leads to more success over time, because once you've proven yourself you can do something, you're going to start wanting to achieve that every time. And I think that's a good mindset to be in, and kind of propels you towards more success. I'd like to have 10 trades over 50,000. In terms of what I'm risking and the type of trades I take and I want to be focusing on, I think that would be an above average trade for me. I think 30 to 60 is where I want to be ranging on my good big picture setups. So to have like 10 over that would be more than I've ever done. And over the course of the year, again, it's a long year. So just because I don't do it in the first 2 months or have any, it's not going to discourage me. 10 over the course of the year, let them come to me. Let me realize that these big picture setups can be a huge bottom line for the end of the year and can really add to it. And to let them come to me, focus on execution, the big picture, and the plan, and sticking to it every single time. And I should have more than 10 trades over 50,000. And the last thing I've written is process over profits. That just really, is what I want, like my motto, my mantra to be this year, is to understand that all of the goals I want to achieve, I will achieve if I stick to the process and focus on the habits each and every single day. And so real quick now, we'll get into January 22, since I've made both of these, since it's first of the year. I will only make those once, but I'll be updating each month my goals as well to see how they relate to the big picture yearly goals. And also understanding that if I achieve each individual monthly goal, I'm going to continue to contribute towards that yearly goal. And understanding it's a marathon, not a sprint, and that taking it one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, and not letting it the end result ever get into my mind at all, and understand that, to run a mile, I have to get that first lap done, then that second lap. And if I focus on the whole mile, I'm going to get tired way too quickly and my time's going to be horrible. So let's focus on right now. So for January 22, I want to start the year on a positive note. This doesn't mean I need to hit a specific dollar goal to be able to say that I'm proud of myself. With as many years as I have under my belt, I totally understand that what you do in January doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of how the whole year goes. In 2019, I had probably the best January, February, March, but that's like my whole year. That's when I struggled a lot, had to rebuild my process. But like the next 9 months, I did basically nothing. Lost money and was break even. So that's, again, what I keep going back to. Like, January doesn't mean you're going to have a great year or a horrible year, but what you do can project and propel you to do better things if you're in a good mindset after the first month, versus having to play catch up, which is the next thing. The January sets the stage for the months to come. You don't want to be playing catch up for the first half of the year, because if you get yourself in a situation where you've dug a hole by not following your plans, not sticking to the process, all of a sudden you get more emotionally drained, and all of a sudden where you're supposed to get emotionally drained in the fall end of the year, you're doing it at the beginning of the year. So now you're not in a good mental state. You're not trading well. You're red, and you're forcing things to get green, and all of a sudden it turns into a situation that could really be a disastrous year, all because you didn't start on the right footing. To ensure that I start out positive, I need to follow my rules and focus on the process. Understanding that if I do that, the money will follow, and so will the momentum that I want to take into the year. This means sticking to my blueprint I've created for myself and not trying to force anything. Starting out the year break even after the first month is far better than starting in a huge deficit. You don't want to be emotionally drained right out of the gate. So my mindset is definitely to take it slow and steady for the first few weeks of the month and try to get in a groove. Do the things that got me confidence and comfort towards the end of last year. Really honing in on risk management and taking fewer trades. This is always when I'm trading my best, not when I'm out there reacting to everything that is moving. Focusing on my watch list that I've carefully narrowed down each night and letting my bread and butter come to me. This is where my edge lies. And the bulk of that just basically means the rules and the blueprint I set for myself at the end of last year that have been working, that have gotten me comfortable, that have gotten me taking fewer trades. This is when I'm trading my best and when I'm the most prepared for a hot market. If a hot market were to come up tomorrow or next week, I am so mentally ready, so prepared. I'm not in a hole. I'm trading really well. I have a few big wins under my belt. The last few trades, I haven't been going out looking for trades. I'm waiting for the right patterns to develop. And that is where my edge is. That's when I trade my best, is when I'm in full control of my trading and in comfortable in every position I'm in, because I know it's a good setup. I know I have proper risk on the table, and I know if I execute properly and the trade works out, I'm going to have a big trade. And that is when I am dangerous. And that is when, big market comes, a hot market, I'm ready to get rich. Keeping all focus on big picture daily chart patterns and leaving the small chump change out there to be had by someone else. Understanding I am not a scalper. I am someone who looks out on a daily chart, sees the bigger picture, finds the specific predictable points to get in, where the stock can go, and taking advantage of that week or two of action that makes the most sense to me during the life cycle of a penny stock. Everything else, not interested in. And what I really want to do this year is experiment. I know it's a long experiment, 12 months, but to see how well can I do if I do this for a whole year. If I focus in on the best of the best, never getting outside of myself, never trying to be someone else in the market just because they know how to trade day ones, just because they know how to short parabolics, leaving that for everyone else and understanding where I am my best. And if the market contributes a few hot markets, a few hot weeks of the year, a month or two, being patient for those times and taking what the market gives me in the meantime, I will by far have the best year I've ever had. Be the most comfortable, be the most happy, be the most healthy, mentally and physically. That is what I want to prove this year to myself. And once I prove it to myself, who knows what the future holds for me. Specific goals for January, I want to be green. Again, we talked about, I don't want to put a dollar amount on this month because it doesn't matter. If I lose 5,000 or if I make 200,000, it's not going to change the end of the year results for me. I know that I'm just one hot market away from hitting that goal in a month. In my mind, what I do in January is irrelevant. So what's important is I stick to the process and get the habits that are going to be needed for the whole year, that I can get comfortable, get confident, and get some momentum going. So for me, it's not a number that matters. Being green would be good enough for me to know that I'm on the right track. 50% win percentage or higher. Follow risk reward, 4-to-1 risk reward on all non-OTC breakout plays every time. This is a discipline thing, so that the new rules I talked about ahead, where on anything that isn't an OTC breakout, I have to take 4-to-1 risk reward every single time. I'm still working that experiment, and that's something that I'm going to have to follow every single time, discipline-wise, for at least this month. And if I start to develop some feel or some edge and holding longer on one or more of these patterns, then I can adapt and adjust once I have some stats on that. And I want to be green each week. I just want to be cool, calm, and comfortable all month. I really want to just flow through this month, make money where it should be made, and leave it out to the other people when it's not for me. And that should definitely lead to green weeks because, I'm taking fewer trades. I'm taking the best of the best. And over the course of the week, there should be a play or two that I can maximize risk reward on and take out a ton of losers. So that's almost 20 minutes there of this episode of Dom's Trading Journal. It's not always going to be this long. There's a lot here because it is the beginning of the year, and I really want to show you how I prepare for the year. But the real main takeaway is creating that blueprint and putting myself in the position to follow that blueprint each and every day. Understanding, the beginning of the year is a great time for you to kind of just go and reset and go, everyone is starting at zero. It doesn't matter if you're Nate Mishow, Jack Kellogg, or me and Huddy, or, someone in the stock therapy chat. Everyone's starting at zero, and you have the chance to create your best year, change your life, achieve all your goals. Those are all on the table now, and everyone's starting from the same spot. And what you choose to do with it has a lot to do with how you've prepared, how you've educated yourself, and what you're doing each and every day that sets you apart from the competition. And throughout this Tom's Trading Journal, I want to show you what I do to set myself apart from the competition and how I grow and adapt each and every day, week and month that, leads me to be the person and the trader I want to be in 5 years, 10 years. Because I think, doing these little things grows and builds each time you into someone that can be super dangerous in the market and in a good way, and be someone who can be super successful and take things to the max. And yeah, so that's going to wrap up this episode. I'm super pumped about the new year, and I'm excited to see where it takes me. I'm excited to get all this on TraderView and to start going over that each and every week. We're going to basically go over a little snippet like this, how I'm doing. It's going to be quicker. I'm just going to rate myself, grade myself on how I'm doing. And you're going to follow me through the ups and the downs when I get away from my rules, when I'm sticking to them, a hot market, cold market. And I'm just going to kind of show you everything that encompasses what I'm doing outside the market to get better and better and better. And you can take it from me. It doesn't matter if you've been in this game a year, 5 years, 10 years. Like, it never gets any easier. You have to continually outwork the competition and put in the work, because if you do get lazy, the market will take advantage of you, and it can happen quicker than you think. So thanks for showing up. I will see you later in the week.